Hello and welcome to another episode of the Atomic Cast. It's Tom here. Hi. And today I'm joined by Bert. Bert, say hello.
Hello.
And Michael. Michael, say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Uh, Sweet dulcet tones of the Northern Irish accent. Michael, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're here, and just generally, who are you? Talk to me.
Okay, well, I'm Michael Bradford, for the many of you who don't know me. I live in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I'm quite active in the scene here, but I've been trying to get over to more GBHL events and more sort of worldwide events where possible, just to build up the knowledge that there is a community scene over here and to sort of build ties with other countries and other people. It's been great to meet a lot of different people in doing that, and looking forward to continuing to do it if I can.
Yeah, so you guys have got you've got the IHL, is that something that you guys are involved in as well, the Irish Hobbit League, or is that a separate thing?
Yeah, so the sort of the main league over here is across the island of Ireland, obviously consisting of Northern Ireland up north and the Republic of Ireland covering the rest of the island. So the IHL, Irish Hobbit League, spans that. I think it was created or sort of formed about 2013, 2015, around that sort of time. Started off quite small, sort of a smaller group of people who wanted to enjoy the hobby together and played with each other and had some events go on. And over the years, it's sort of expanded, and I guess there's been more linkage with the Great British Hobbit League, the GBHL, to the point where we now have GBHL counting events, and would send international teams to participate in international events.
We've got the GHL's got the kind of northern it's now the Scottish and Irish region, isn't it? Whereas it used to be the north of England as well, wasn't it? I think involved.
It was all northern, and now I think Will Champion's running Northern England or something like that. And
Yeah,
then
Will's got the northern England.
yeah, Dave Reed looks after Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland.
Got a little bit of both. And then did you send a group out to the WTC?
Yeah, so we hosted last year in Cork, and we had a few teams at that. And then this year in Granada, we had two Irish Republic of Ireland teams and one Northern Irish team go out and participate.
And over in your, would you say your events in general are they? Is it a competitive scene? Is everyone coming to try and win events? Is everyone bringing like the most dialed in kind of legend regions, yellow alliances, that kind of thing they can, or is it still kind of a collective of people coming to kind of play with the list that they enjoy and keep it fairly kind of narrative and themey?
I think, quite honestly, I haven't had to think about this. It's quite a fair mix, which is really nice. The scene, as I said, started off small. It has grown slowly but surely over the years, and then we had a bit of a boom towards the tail end of COVID. So particularly up north here, there was a big influx of gamers, and there started to be more coverage there. So I don't know if you guys have met Connor Glover, but he runs the Workers of Mirkwood channel, which has given some exposure to the sort of the Northern Irish scene over here. And then down south, there's been more. There's been more people attending events and so on. That sort of, I think people tend to lead generally with bringing something fun that they want to play, and they can run that competitively, or they'll just use it because it's what they like. But there is a fair core of competitive gamers that exist here, who can play at quite a decent level. And to be honest, most of them would use standard lists rather than building to the meta. Um, because I guess we could all accept that there are lists that are deemed very strong, sometimes OP. Usually they'll not be as prominent over here. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, double Wraith, double Mortal Wraith, and Spider Queen, for example. I don't think I've really ever seen anyone run that here, but over in France, it was the flavor of the month for quite a while. Maybe it still is. So we don't tend to see sort of yellow soupy stuff like that. But we do get the odd Irish stew, which sort of has been made popular recently. Things like all hero lists with Saruman, Gwaihir, Galadriel, Lady of Light, and a few other killers or something. And they've done well at events like Harry Parkill's the Imp event, and recently LA Kings City of Kings event. So you do get fun yellow alliances like that. Fun depending on how you perceive them. I personally enjoy them, but so you get a fair mix from narrative themey, your sort of your Grey Company, Thorns Company, Hobbits, stuff like that, to your sort of standard legendary legions, be it Return of the King, Rise of Ted, and stuff like that. And then occasionally you get Assault upon Helm's Deep. I think the Dragon Emperor's cropped up a little, Bjornings too, things like that. But really, people tend to play what they like rather than what is the established meta. Does
How
that answer
big?
your question? Sorry. Just
Uh,
rambled for ages.
with the Irish Hobbit League events, like how many players are you getting to sort of see this sample of lists? So are you getting 30, 40 players at local events, or is it still like 10, 12, 15?
So it would be more towards the latter. Certainly for quite a period there, 12 to 16 was probably an average tournament. And when you get groups like that, a core of those players would have been around for quite a while or would be quite competitive. So, most of your games are like top table games, certainly for over here. I guess it really does build up your skill level. And therefore, when some of us have come across to the GBHL and other events, it's definitely a change of pace sometimes. However, with the sort of booming players we've had this year, we're breaking all sorts of record with most events where we're now sort of lower 20s is a decent event size, and I think the Irish Open this weekend has about 30, and then the Northern Irish Open should have around 50. So we're building, and that's really exciting. And good to see, and great to be building a community and getting more people internationally coming over, which is fantastic. Really is.
Yeah, I saw you had an event. Is it a GBH 100 event you had up that went up and kind of sold like 50 odds tickets pretty quickly? Is that
Yeah,
GBH?
that's the July one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's real soon, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. That's because there was a time where we were putting up events and it was coming to the week before and there was still lots of spaces and things. I think there are a few people leading little contingents across to come and get pissed in Dublin for the weekend. But, yeah.
It's a great place to visit, be it north or south. There's good crack, good company, nice places to see. But yeah, we're hoping to, particularly for the GBHL counting events, with any GBHL hundreds we host and the 90s, but mainly the hundreds, because I feel like more people travel for the hundreds than the 90s over the water. We are looking forward to continuing to boost the numbers we have at these events.
I heard someone referring to it as we'll go across to Northern Ireland because it'll be a nice soft 100 over there because no one else will go over there. And I thought, oh, you poor, like, sure there'll be some easy games. However,
I won't ask for a name. Having seen the roster for the July event, it became something of a Shark Tank because, I mean, for anyone coming over and looking to maybe farm points, dare I say it, you have to remember that there's a good contingent of players over here who are quite decent who you have to get past. And I'd say that's the same for most countries you go to, be it the Finnish Open, Danish Open, some of the more maybe smaller European scenes, the Dutch Open, you've still got to actually get past the great players that they have there and any other international players that are visiting with the same designs you have. I found that myself when I went over to the Dutch Open. I wasn't expecting an easy ride at all, but there's these sort of events attract good players as well as the existing ones on the scene in the host country. But as it is, there's a fair amount of people from the GBHL. I think we've got a couple lads from Holland, a Finnish contingent. Some of the top Belgians are coming, as well as your Dave Farmer, Jakob, Jamie, Chris Lewis, of course, absolutely smashes hundreds that way, and Dave Clubley and others coming across for July, and then there's other notable names, influential people on the scene coming over in June too, in next weekend.
Incredibly bold statement to put Jamie in that group of people.
Here, I'll always stand by my Jamie. Don't you worry.
Nah, not Jamie.
The rules pack for the 100 that's coming up this weekend as well is one of the funkier things that I think we've seen in quite some time.
It is. Would you like me to comment on that, or do you have thoughts yourself?
I think we'd all rather hear your voice.
I haven't seen this. What's this?
Oh, Tom, you'll love this.
I'll try and do it. I'll try not to do it as a service and how I recap it, but basically, the GBHL 100 this weekend is a normal, sort of a standard event with an added sort of feature, a bit like the July event has a Silmaril hunt. This event has what is called an unsung heroes feature. So you can pick any unnamed hero that's not a magic caster, and is under 100 points base. And you can give them up to 2 additional heroic actions, but they can't be both strike and defense. So does a Dragon Knight has strike, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could give him defense, and that's fine. But if you chose, I don't know, let's think an Orc captain, you couldn't give him both strike and defense, so it has to be one or the other. But yeah, they can have up to 3 heroic actions, and you can give them up to 2. And then there's a pool of, I don't actually know how many there are, but let's ballpark 50-ish, if not more, special rules. There's 3 pools of them, and you can give this hero 1 from each pool. So pool 1 has stuff like, I think, like Burly and Bodyguard and Reckless Charge, and there's a bunch of archery ones too. Pool 2 has, like, I think Bane of Kings maybe. Gosh, there's plenty. It would have been good to furnish you with these beforehand. And then pool 3 is stuff like Hatred, Ancient Enemies, Cave Dweller, Duelist, things like that. I think it's sort of farmed stuff from battle companies, which I don't know so well as the sort of the special rules that certain heroes like Thedred have in the game, or Legendary Hero that the Young has, and then the other ones in the rulebook. So yeah, the purpose is you essentially pimp my ride on a unnamed hero, and then stick them in your list if you want, and there's a prize for the most heroic unsung hero at the end of the tournament. Does that make sense, that recap?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I as soon as you started talking about it, I went, I have seen this, yes, because I got really confused trying to read it. That made it much more sense than trying to read about it.
I had a quick read, and you could do something like give a what's he called? Give like the Rohan King's Huntsman. You can give him like Narzug's special rule where he can spend a point of might for shooting, and give him like Deadly Shot.
Yep.
Which is just, it's what you can like do accuracy. He only fails in the ways on double 1s, firing 3 shots a turn with might. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
I don't believe, having had I think a gander at what the lists are going to be. I don't think anyone's taken Defenders of Helm's Deep, which does surprise me because the King's Huntsman was a tasty choice to make him essentially a mini Legolas.
If you drop him
Okay.
into you drop that into a Helm's Legion or something, that's quite nice as well.
Yeah,
'Cause then-
it could work well. Although I don't know how well Helm does it 777. But yeah, he can be in what Theodred's Guard as well, can't he?
It's 100 at 700.
Hmm?
Helm.
Really? Oh, fair enough. Again,
It was
it's
Helm and
yeah.
2 King's Huntsmans.
Wow, that's fair
Because
going.
all they do is they fire the huntsman's essentially to drop any other hero off a horse. And then if you're playing against like Assault on Loth, once you get into range, you then just like ping the huntsmans into the shamans and stuff, and they just start dying.
Yeah.
There's things you can do with it that are really nice. But yeah, no, that sounds really cool.
It'll definitely be interesting. I guess we won't know till we played the tournament. As to if it has any unforeseen OP impact.
It's bold going for it for 100.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'd have probably
It
chucked
is.
it in an 80 first and just seen what happened. But I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, we will see what happens. It's definitely a creative choice. But you know, these sort of things have worked well before. I mean, for the July event, the scenarios have been tweaked so that, you know, certain swing scenarios or scenarios that aren't really popular with people will hopefully be somewhat more popular if they come up, or you know, not as swingy, I suppose.
I feel like the
Your
community is
heirloom.
revolting against this match play guide at the moment. We're not far off needing a new one, Jay, if you're listening. But yeah, because after Ali's event as well, City Kings, they all went down quite well, I think.
Yeah.
Are they fairly similar changes that Ali did?
No, although it's more just trying to balance what points are available. So for I don't know. So for Storm the Camp, you know, that's in most people's heads, that's just a draw scenario usually, especially if there's like 2 oppressive bow lists on the table or so on. So I think the only thing that's changed for that is that the deployment is now a 24-inch sort of arc. It was considered to do the retrieval deployment, but I don't know. I think I thought I'd just let retrieval be retrieval and experiment with the 24, because it's still, you know, like 3 turns to cross the dead zone until the camp. But and then seize the prize. You don't end the game if you get the prize off the table. Instead, the game ends when one force hits 25%.
One force hits 25.
Yeah. So it's more like a normal game. And you have more of a chance to score points for the break and then the leader if you don't get the prize. Contest is 2, 4, 6 for the leader's kills. You get 1 and 3 points for breaking unbroken, and then you get 1 point for wounding the enemy leader, 2 for killing them, and 3 for killing them with your leader. So it means there's more of an even balance of points rather than everything resting around the leader. And then obviously heirlooms is 5 points for the heirloom, 3 if you have more people around the heirloom, but you don't hold it. And then I think it's sort of an extra point for breaking in a similar way to Scarron of Stirlingshire, you know, which I think led with that scenario. Sorry. So yeah, borrowed there. Good changes.
I actually personally think the FAQ to heirlooms just made it worse, but because it says kind of if you have more models within whatever it is, then you get points, and then but now I said, but that's only if you actually control the thing, or if no one's picked it up. Because it meant I've had it where you're playing low points and someone picks up with a birder, and then you're like, well, what do I do? I had Goblin Town. I was trying to get the thing off birder, and it's just like, well, I've got Courage 2 with Harbinger, so it's like down to Courage 1. Like, great. What am I going to do about this? Like, I can't do anything. Whereas even if you get some points for being around it.
Yeah.
I just like that. I just like that with your change. Essentially, by playing a fairly normal game of kill the leader and break them, you can win the game.
Yeah, it's to give people a chance more because I guess I don't know if you guys are familiar with the scoring system we have over here, but it's all about the TPs you get, the VP difference. So it encourages people to lose small or win big. So if you're losing, if you come into a matchup which is not looking great for you, it still gives you incentive to fight for every point, every point. And that's why, you know, certain scenarios in my mind need balancing, or retuning, because I like the scenarios. I personally, I love heirlooms. I just dislike how swingy it is, and think, you know, with some changes it could be better. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I had a point. Oh yeah, the July event won't use the pool system either. So it comes down to chaos. So feel free to bring a swing list, you know, your all hero soup, but you might get or you know, a siege weapon heavy army, but you might get 3 maelstrom scenarios, you know. So it's like it used to be done, and I quite like that.
I've seen a few people saying that they're still not feeling the pools. But
I personally, I'm not a fan. No, but the game changes. We'll see what the next developments are.
Is that scoring system like the London 20-point system?
It's sort of similar. So basically, each player starts with 12 TPs, tournament points, and then at the end of the game, you add the VP difference. So if you were playing Tom and you won 7-1, the difference is 6. So you would get +6, 18 points, and Tom would get -6, 6 points. So it would finish 18.
Other way around, but okay. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'd have 18 and he'd have 6, but yeah.
But yeah, so it encourages people to fight for points, and we've tweaked it slightly so that if you win by 1 or 2 VPs, you get a bump to if you won by 3 VPs. So Dom, if this time you beat Bert 1-0, it would be 13-11, but instead you'll be bumped up to 15. But Bert will still stay at 11. So it just symbolizes that, you know, the win rather than
a couple of bonus points for winning. Yeah. We've had that with some of the London ones, for instance, where I went 2 wins and 2 draws and came second because my 2 wins were 12-0 wins and my 2 draws were draws. So it ends up you take home out of there. So there's if you draw you get 10, and then it's 11-9, 12-8, and so on. So out of a maximum 80, I took home 60 points from 2 wins and 2 draws. And it's but yeah, it's an interesting system. I like it because everyone obviously fights. I think the Germans use a very similar one, but they've got like a whole matrix somewhere where like a 3-1 win is worth more than a something else win, and I don't know.
I couldn't claim to understand it.
It's a really complicated matrix I saw once, but I think once you use it, it makes perfect sense. But
So John tried telling me that it was a bit like the Duckworth-Lewis method from cricket. If that means anything to either of you.
Your Tory is showing, but
nothing to me.
The seized a prize change. Is that so? If it ends up when one force gets to 25%, could that lead to more armies doing a kind of smash and grabbing the thing and then just hiding? So kind of this Lake Town Gwaihir list, for instance, has become popular, kind of grabbing it, running off with Gwaihir and just letting the Lake Town die, and then Gwaihir has the thing still and wins. Anyway,
is Gwaihir the leader in that case in your head?
Potentially, yeah, probably.
I had considered rejigging the points, but I thought we tried this one before. It's okay, but basically, it's to stop the anti-game Gullivar, Gwaihir, I don't know, Eagle, whatever, landing on the Reddit, picking it up and scooting off the board immediately for a 7-0 win. If somebody cares to run off the board that quickly, there's still 5 points on the table they could give up, meaning that, you know, even if the other team loses, that could be a 14-10 loss. That's still decent points for the loser. Yeah.
In the context of your scoring system, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It might not in other scoring systems. And I think a general word on scoring systems, like no scoring system is infallible. There will always be edge cases that make it not so great, or there'll always be different opinions on them. But we found it works well over here. It's been it's gone down well, and we're hoping to encourage other people to think about using it. And I know Ali himself did something at City of Kings that was different to the norm. It was an interesting way of scoring.
He likes to give away. He heavily rewards scoring VPs.
Yes, that was it. Yes, you got a plus 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5.
It was
that
was a nice hybrid between a regular scoring system and so the year before was just pure VP scored.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple of anomalous results towards the top end. And I think this year that nice little hybrid between the two made sure that I think the right people ended up on top and scoring was rewarded without some slightly sillier result occurring.
Sure. No, I think it worked well enough. And I think of all Ali's scenario changes, I think I really liked how he did storm the camp, because obviously it's not the same to what we've done over here, but it was basically, you don't need to worry about your camp so much. You just go and capture the opponent's camp, try and get your banner in it, for example, was a really cool twist on banner points, rather than them just hiding in a corner somewhere. Suddenly they need to go somewhere and do something.
Then you have to risk them as well a little bit, which is quite nice.
Exactly. Yeah, it means it's a more active game on the table, which was nice. So it's definitely one I'd consider asking him to borrow in future. I like that.
This is kind of part of an ongoing conversation that we've had with some other people as well, in terms of how GBHL 100s should be going forwards. From the look of these two rules packs, I can hazard a guess. But are you generally more in favour of having like GBHL 100 being fairly standardised but different points, or do you like this idea of every 100 having its own quirk and being that bit different?
I think different things. I think firstly, variety is the spice of life. If every GBHL 100 or every event were the same, it could get quite tiring, even if you get different scenarios in different tournaments. I do think with GBHL 100s, especially given that 90s have been brought in, and the fact that there is a greater pool of people competing for the top spots in the league, potentially a little more uniformity could be given to GBHL 100s. But I think there's every allowance for people to amend scenarios. I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris and Dave over in Scotland with the Scarron of Stirlingshire, I'm pretty sure they created the heirloom scenario. But the way they build their tournament every year, it's an established amazing 100, and they do a sort of major minus scoring system. They've tweaked some scenarios, or certainly heirlooms. And I think as long as the tweaks you do to scenarios, or whether you're using or not using a pool system, as long as they make sense and aren't ridiculous, I've no issue with that being done. I think, when you potentially look at changing the mechanics of the game, that's when you might need to be a little more careful that it doesn't unfairly skew a major sort of GBHL 100 tournament result. But I don't necessarily see that being an issue in anything I've seen thus far. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it's my like personal view on it is that I quite like the a more standard kind of 100 is playing the game that we all know. I should be able to go up and play the mission that I've played before. I know how it's going to work. I like some of VP scored, some of this kind of scoring system, some of this, some reward different aspects of gameplay, some of different points levels. But I'm not a massive fan of it. If I was to go to one as a with the custom heroes thing, for example, that would kind of throw me off a little bit in 100. However, as a 90, really cool idea. And that kind of thing. That's my personal. I like that it's different.
Everyone will have different views on it. I guess we can't know till we've done it. That for me would probably fall under the mechanics of the game kind of thing. I mean, the only thing I'm foreseeing in the event, which I'm really looking forward to, is they forget my own heroes rules for a start. Never mind what other people have done for their heroes. They're going, oh, that's your Mahout King. Okay, I have a vague idea of what he does because I've never played with one before, for example. And then, oh right, yeah, he's got sort of Bane of Kings and Burley and I don't know, something else, woodland creature or something. Right, okay. Yeah, my Legolas will shoot you dead in 2 turns, ideally. If that's the case.
It throws an awful lot of kind of it's become quite apparent how strong just people not really knowing what it does is, especially like fairly locally to us at the moment. So Dewey's been running rampant with his Great Beast of Gorgoroth, kind of double beast list. And I played against the weekend, and I reckon if I played against it again, I would do a much better job, purely from having known what it does now and having watched it in action. And there's that little bit of, like you say, suddenly there's a Mahout King with Fleetfoot. Now, what do I do against that? Because it's just running me straight through the woods into me and things, and he's like, because I would normally go, oh, Mahout King, cool, I'll go hide in the woods, and now it can't charge me, and well, it can, but really slowly. But suddenly,
it's an extra aspect of the game to be aware of, and that'll always happen whether it's a normal tournament where somebody brings a Mumak which you've never really played before, and you're like, how do I manage a war beast? In this case, it's just extra heroic rules that people have, but obviously the expectation is before every game, you run your opponent through what your unsung hero does. And you welcome questions during the game, like, right, if I'm here, can your hero get to me? That sort of thing. But no, I have no doubt that it'll be an enjoyable event that people appreciate. But I understand the question. I mean, personally, if you make events more uniform, you can still have diversity, whether you use pools, whether you do custom pools, a veto system, whether you change the VPs, as you said, how you calculate them. But also, I think I would have stronger feelings on being able to make custom scenarios or amend or make changes to scenarios, because I do think there are certain scenarios that throw off competitive sort of equality in a tournament. You could have 2 equally good players get a swing scenario, and one of them doesn't get to give a very good opportunity a very good sort of account of themselves just because of the nature of the scenario.
Heirlooms is another one that just causes pure carnage. Like
Heirlooms is exactly one of them. Yeah.
If you look at it, if you sit back, you're watching a 100 take place, and you watch the rankings go up, and there's just people everywhere, and then you go, what happened there? And they went, oh, it's Heirlooms, and you go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Suddenly, everyone you'd expect to be up here is now all the way over here, and sometimes that's good for the event, but other times then you end up with someone like an Eden's type or a J. Claire or someone like that, I don't know, who's here to try and win the event, is now suddenly playing someone who is here for a good time, and they can not necessarily have the best game against each other because someone's come out. He needs to then rack his score back up to win big. And it can lead to like a little bit of a negative experience for both people, I guess. But yeah. With the second part of the kind of 100 conversation that we have been having, just like within our little region in the area, is the number of them seems to be growing massively at the moment as well, especially over in the UK. And we've had a lot more people in the UK, Great Britain, especially over in Great Britain. We've had a load more hundreds popping up. Is that something that you like, or is that would you like to see less hundreds, more stricter rules on hundreds, more hundreds? I don't know.
I think there needs to be some rules around hundreds. Again, all I'm going to be doing is expressing my personal opinion here, which people can take with the
Oh yeah,
largest pinch of what they want. But for example, that like sort of some recent chat has been around. There's going to be a 1 day 100
yes.
in July, and I personally think the hundreds, it might change next year, for example, but going forward should probably be a 2 day event. But apart from that, I guess I think I'm happier to see a greater range of hundreds, because it used to be, there were established ones. There was Scouring up in Scotland. Ali would do City of Kings. You'd have War. Sort of events like this that people knew in the calendar, the imp that that they would want to go to. But my understanding is the GBHO in particular has boomed over the last year or two. And I am aware that there are a lot of people saying, how do we get tickets to 100? Because I was sending money at 8:01 when tickets were released at 8 o'clock and there weren't any tickets left. So, hundreds are selling out. So there's a fair amount of them, but the tickets are going, which means there's an appetite for them, and people need to understand that when you're at 100, generally you'll be competing for points more so than it's a prioritized fun event like themey fun and stuff. Although that can of course happen and exist. I I think as well, I believe that there's what a 32 minimum capacity in effect on hundreds at the moment.
There is,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So if that were put up, not unreasonably, but within sort of an extra, let's say it went up to 48 people or something. I don't know if that would mean that hundreds that exist currently couldn't run, so there would be a drop in hundreds. But what it would mean is that if the same amount of hundreds as has been held this year is held next year, you're going to have a lot of extra places at them, and therefore people can get involved. I think if anything, the league competitiveness, the league standings this year will have been affected by there being 90s in existence now, because technically, like, to get 360 points in the league, again, just my limited understanding previously, was a darn good score. And now technically, not that it wouldn't be impressive still, but you can win 490s and achieve your
I mean that's basically what Dewey's doing this year. Like, I don't think he's been to 100, and he's looking like he's going to end up going to Masters next year.
Well, I'm super happy because like he's a very good player, and he's obviously he's getting under people's skin with the great beasts. It's not something you see every day, and there he is smushing people with them. And obviously as a Guardian, I root for our leader, but yeah, no, it gives people who might not have the ability to go to hundreds as much as other people an opportunity to indulge their competitive outlet through more local 90s tournaments. But yeah, I don't, sorry, to come back around to the original question as I recall it, I don't think the existence of more hundreds is too much of an issue. But I guess we'll have to evaluate how the league looks at the end of the year and go, well, what impact did more hundreds have? What impact did the 90s getting brought in have? Are 80s realistic? Should they maybe be 70s, to sort of stop people not going for the spirit of the event at an 80, for example? And then, you would hope to trust in the committee to make the right changes if changes are needed, probably more like tweaks, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the 90s has what's going to happen, I think, with that, my kind of end of year prediction on it, is that the top 4 or 5 will still be very much decided on hundreds, and then the next kind of 20 or 30 spaces you'll see a lot more competition for. The gaps will all be much smaller because people are now going to way more 90s and things. And were you on about 355 last year, Michael, at the end? Something
Yeah,
around that.
I came sixth with around something like that. Yeah, and that was that. Obviously, there were no 90s there. I think I won 100, and I did all right at some other hundreds.
I'm
But
not
I was only at
stalking
like
you. I
sixth or
just kind
seventh
of
then.
have that up on the screen right now.
Fair.
Yeah, you're 355 in sixth, and then you're currently in sixth again on 354. And it's kind of
I'm on
very quickly.
354. Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, you're on 35466, and you are 1.14 points behind what you were last year.
I mean, I'm semi gutted because I was third prior to City of Kings, and then Jakob won it, so he's jumped above me. I know, and obviously a couple other people have, I suppose. But yeah,
Jakob, Ed
yeah,
is up there.
yeah.
Um, Ivan, has he just jumped above you?
Is he fifth?
Ivan came what, third?
He did.
Kings?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ivan's fifth.
So he's gotten 290s over here. He's gotten a 90 there.
He has
From
three
coming
90
third.
scores and an 87,
Yeah,
which last year would have been three 80s and an 87. And that's because my last year's scores, I did okay. I got a second at 100 and three podium. Well, yeah, a string of podiums at 80s, which now would be a string of podiums at 90s. It would put you right up in the mix, which would be quite nice. But because I can't get to too many 2-day events, so it should help out with that, and hopefully take the stress off the 80s and make them be able to go back to being fun local events again. But they're still quite close, like you mentioned with the 7, like maybe 70 instead, maybe.
It's not the people that are only farming 80s. It's more that for that the third or fourth score, if you can find that soft little 80 somewhere new, then you get somebody who's like 16th in the league, or 15th, 17th, whatever, who can go, oh, I can bump up my 65 up to an 80. And like all power to them, it makes sense. But if there was some way of demotivating that, it'd probably be a good thing.
As someone who, well, I was part of the conversations when the 90s came in, and we talked about 80s and potentially doing it. So changing the 80 to be a lower, so you're having 100s and 80s and a 60 or something. And a lot of people, especially the guys who've been around for a long time, they were very concerned about the whole devaluing the 80 completely and kind of making it not part of the league and things like that. But I still think that it's very important for them to, those events will still benefit from being part of the league for things like the hobby scores, and they might bring out more people for that kind of thing. Which is really important, and you're getting guys coming along with their kind of beautiful armies and things, and if we can have that sort of layer to the league as well, I think it would be a massive boon to the GBHL to have kind of events that you can come to that are going to be well run in theory because they're being run as part of a league. There's certain criteria that they have to meet to be part of that. You're seeing kind of a celebration of hobbyists and hobbies and things, but you're also putting off the few people that might turn up and try and coming with intentions to try and kind of stomp new people out of the way on purpose, for instance, which is never a fun experience.
Yeah, I think going down to something like 70, maybe not too far a drop, that really should remove people. You'll get the odd person who wants to go to an event and just win. Fair enough. But I think that the theory behind 80s is that you can do narrative, themey. It's more fun. It's more hobby aspect focused rather than competitiveness focused. I don't foresee people in the sort of the upper echelons of the league really relying on 70s scores. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Tom, I don't know if you still got the spreadsheet open, but I'm pretty sure my top 5 scores are above 80.
Your fifth was 74.4. So you should have found a little 80 somewhere.
Last year.
Last year, yeah.
Oh no, but this year.
Yeah, this year, no, you're above 80 for all of them.
Right. So, and that's me with over half the year to go and a lot of competitive events to come. That's me sitting 6th. So yeah, I think if 80s were now 70s, it really should put people off going with an intention that isn't the event's intention. I know. Sorry, go on.
I just said I I said it at the event at the weekend. So we got into the final round, and I realised like, I was losing the game and realised that anything other than that was not going to get me any more points. Never going to be relevant at the end of the game. So I'm going to go do my secret mission instead. Kind of leave that game behind. Go do my secret mission, get my special point, and get my special prize for doing a secret mission instead, because that was more like the GBHL points of a 75 is going to be completely irrelevant to me. So, hopefully by the end of the year, I would like to think, but
yeah, that's what it'll come to. Maybe it'll be top 5 scores in future going forward as well. Something that perhaps could be looked at, because I know you're on the committee, Tom, is and again, I've only literally just thought of this here, but if there was a more detailed way of assessing the hobby scores, so your best painted, most sporting, so that events like 70s, if they are, I'm calling them 70s now, but events like 80s, if they were dropped GBHL points, is there a way you could boost how they contribute to the hobby scores? So like maybe there would be more points available for people entering best painted, best theme, most sporting, whatever is measured at an 80, but at 100 they'd be more standardized. So there would be more incentive for people involved in the creative side of the hobby to go to 80s with that thing in mind.
The conversation about how can we encourage the hobby side of things has definitely happened a lot more over this year and the tail end of last year, which led to, I believe we did podium places for the full GBHL for hobbies for the first time last year. And then one of the conversations has been had is something like 100 being able to award 2 best painted votes and things like that. Because I know at mine I do a good and an evil army for best painted, just to kind of, there's a few people in the kind of southern region who Sean Creed and John Partridge are currently kind of both on like 6 or 7 best painted alreadys. And then there's Scott Whitefoot, the perennial kind of bad boy around here. And then I know what used to be the full northern region, but is now you've got Sean Sproul and Julian Hammonds.
He's either Midlands or North, but he's still picking up some votes.
I mean, Sean Sproul is a notable painter. Did he win last year? Was he best artisan last year?
Him and Julian Hammond, I think it was, wasn't it?
Okay.
Were competing like neck and neck for ages. Let's have a look. But my internet is slow. He was one of those where every time there was an event in the northern region, it came back and it was, Sean's won it. So there's a little bit of kind of trying to maybe be able to offer 2 and 3, an extra votes. Painted, Sean got 7. So he won on 7, and Julian Hammond had 6 paintings.
Michael, do you think there should be any limit on how many times you could win a prize for each army? Should it be new projects, or should it just be as it is and whatever wins?
That's impossible.
Tough question, especially for an aspect of the hobby that I'm not especially involved in, or that I prioritize myself, because I know my limits or what I've invested in. I think you want to get into a place where more people are encouraged to get better at those sides of the hobby, or indulge in them. So for example, in July, well, just to give you a sort of a brief overview of my thoughts behind the July GBH 100 here. It is a competitive event. It's the Articon Open, the Northern Irish Open for Articon. It's a GBHL 100. It's top points for the IHL over here. So the expectation is people are going to enter to be competitive. But I'm well aware that, especially over here, like a large portion of the scene are kind of interested in the game and the hobby side of things. And I want them to come to the event knowing that they have a good chance of winning a prize. That's why there's a Silmaril hunt, but it's why I've tried to get a decent array of prizes to promote not just come in first, second, third, or the sort of favorite David Clubley fourth place prize, but also to do a podium for best painted, but also to have best themed, best painted model, most leader kills, most sporting. These things are sort of recognized with trophies, and there's a fair array of prizes so that people can have fun, enter, and win stuff. But also, I think the one I guess I'm trying to highlight is having a first, second, and third, because I'm able to this year for best painted, means that if certain notable painters are coming, and Sean Sproul should be there, Louis Van Heck as well. If you've ever had the luxury of seeing his work, he's just a brilliant hobbyist and painter. Yeah, I know John Partridge would hopefully be interested in coming next year. So those are established painters that people know that would have an in to compete for the top three. But it also means that if just one of those guys is coming over, and you might expect them usually to walk away with the best painted trophy, well, suddenly other people can go, well, I've a fair chance to at least get on the podium with my efforts. And I think perhaps where possible, because I know like TO is always limited by what funds they have. If where possible, tournaments could seek to reward a greater array of prizes for the hobbying sides of the hobby, be it painting, modeling, and sporting and stuff. You would better encourage involvement in that, whether it's in an 80 or 90 or 100.
Nice.
I certainly struggle as a TO because I'm probably quite similar to yourself in that I'm not a massive painter, and I find it comes up quite a few times. It hampers me in life, in business as well, where people come in and go, "How do I paint this?" I go, "I don't know, slap some contrast paint on it and move on." Like, the amount of times I have people coming in asking for painting advice, and I'm just like, "Lads, you're better than me. I don't know." But I neglected it last year, and I felt a bit bad. But we're really trying to improve it this year. So I am going to push for 1, 2, 3 and good and evil, so we can have kind of lots of people getting lots of prizes for painting, and actual prizes for painting as well, instead of just yes, you won best painting, good job. Because I find I do it a lot with our the 80s and 90s that we run in store. They're quite small, and I do kind of first, second, and third get a trophy, and best painter gets a kind of good job, here's a handshake, and we do store credit and things, but like nothing to show for it. Which is a real shame. It's been brought up a couple of times with some of our local lads, so we're definitely trying to improve on it, which would be quite good. We've also
Sorry, just quickly, is the GBHL doing a first, second, third for best artisan or whatever this year, or is it just a single award again?
I believe, off the top of my head, might be wrong, we're doing a podium for it.
Cool.
But I could be wrong. That's off the top of my head. I will.
The treasurer is going to be sweating if you are wrong. You just promised the people and sitting on his mountain.
I do what I want. I promise the people all kinds of things. I don't even know who the committee is, so it's okay. Never heard of them. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'll have a look at that while I'm doing this. But yes, I think we're trying to do a better first, second, and third. I think that was discussed. Or we discussed it and decided not to. Who knows? There was certainly a conversation about it at one point. One of the things I do for the larger events is I do a best overall, which I kind of stolen from 40K, which I know is a swear word in Middle-earth conversations. But what we so it comes out, it's essentially a combination of your playing score, your sporting score, and your painting score. And all three get combined across the weekend. So it worked out really nicely last year by pure happy coincidence. I do for sporting in the big events, we do a kind of 1 to 10 after each game, just kind of jot it down on your feedbacks on your score slip where you put your opponent, because it helps us have like an anonymous kind of, this guy was actually a bit of a tool, and put a 1 in. I'll come and talk to you later on and see what I can find, see if it was an attitude problem or an actual like blatant cheating or something. And it did help us kind of find someone being naughty last year, so that was nice. But then it worked out beautifully last year, where if you added the painting scores, the sporting scores, and the things, they're all like roughly equal when you combine them all, stuck them all together, and it meant they were weighted evenly across the event. So the chap who won, he won best painted good. His sporting score was kind of in the middle somewhere, and his playing score was somewhere in the middle somewhere. But because of all of that together, he ended up being the best overall person. The second place person, he had the second lowest sporting score of the event, but also stuck it on the podium and came second in painting. But second lowest sporting score of the event, and then won that. So maybe that needed a bit of a tweak, but we'll see. But it does kind of help reward someone for doing everything, which is quite nice.
I'm gutted we aren't having this conversation a few months ago, because I would have stolen that immediately for July. I think that's a great idea, because I feel quite strongly that competitive events, your GBH 190 and so on, shouldn't ever finish the overall rankings with anything contributing to that score other than your game performance. So I believe some tournaments I've heard of certainly would go, right, your overall ranking is based on not just how you did in your games, but also how well you painted and so on. I don't subscribe to that, but I think as a sort of a side, equally as good award that doesn't contribute to your GBHL scores or whatever, having this overall that is a sum of what you brought to the tournament, both in your play, in your sort of hobbying, and your sport and performance and so on. That's a great idea. And if I had the budget this year, I don't think I do, sadly now. I'd love to grab a decent trophy for that. So cheers for the idea.
Well, that's my it's always equal with the biggest trophy, and normally has a pretty cool prize attached to it as well. So last year was okay, but this year is going to be I'm working on something special for that, just because, like you said, I'm also a strong advocate of nothing should interfere with the actual. This person won the tournament. He is the best player at the game.
Yeah.
And then there's other stuff. Maybe at an 80 or what have you, like you can add it in to make it kind of fun and fluffy and deter people if you want to do that kind of stuff. But at 100, it should be, I won the game, I won the tournament, essentially. In my head. But yeah, I've also, in the background, while we were having this conversation, have checked the GBHL rules document, because I am thorough in my work, and there is a 1, 2, 3 for painted and Friends of Middle Earth, which is the sporting score this year.
Very
That's
good.
gorgeous.
So yeah, I knew we'd done it. It was a bold. I was pretty confident that we said yes to that, because it seemed like something like we definitely wanted to push it this year. So yeah, but we have. So good job, us.
No. I think the committee has really, like, over the last few years, this year in particular too, with the greater numbers on it, is pushing all the right stuff, and it's good to see.
Basically, since I joined the committee, yeah, you're right. I agree.
Hopefully, as an advert to people who haven't really gone to that many hundreds, you came from lands overseas into the GBHL scene. How have you found that in terms of socially, the competitive environment? Has it been friendly? How have you generally found it? And would you suggest for others to do the same?
Yeah, what a lovely question. I will try not to monologue for too long on this one, but yeah. So as I explained over here, having a much smaller scene that is growing, much smaller certainly in comparison to the GBHL. You go to an event, you kind of know who you're going to see there. You sort of know the games you're going to have, and it's grand. But towards, I think it was sort of let's say September on last year, perhaps. I think I ended up doing 6 or 7 GBHL events in total last year. Most of them were at the back end of last year, when I started coming over for 100. So I was over for the Imp, for War, for G-Boot, and for Scouring of Stirlingshire. And there I host one over here, and there's the other sort of down south that gets hosted, and there must have been another. I don't know, it'll come to me or it won't. So that was interesting because I was suddenly getting, I know a lot of people, or sort of know to a certain point, a lot of people from online interaction, mainly through Guardian's Discord. Just a wee plug for that. It's a great sort of community that Dewey runs. And that was really nice to have over COVID, because it built a lot of relationships with people in a time where isolation was prevalent. And I think we had sort of like weekly, monthly quizzes going on. So it was a great way to meet people, virtually, obviously. And then when COVID started relaxing, or COVID didn't relax, but the governments obviously did, in relation to how they treated it. The opportunity was there to actually get across the border and meet the people who you'd met virtually online previously. And so I took the opportunity to do that, and haven't looked back. I think, so I said, sorry, the events over here are smaller. You know generally who you're going to see, who you're going to play, and so on. Instantly, when you go over to GBHL 100, they're usually a fair size bigger than the events we have here. So not only are you meeting a lot of people you don't know, but you're getting games against people you've never played before, encountered before, against armies you've probably not seen before. And it's great getting so much exposure. And the great thing is, most of the people you meet are absolutely lovely. And it's such a wholesome experience to put yourself out there into an event or scene you don't know, with maybe a few contacts who you made previously, only to find out that most of the other people you encounter are just lovely. So that was and has been a real highlight of my experience of starting to journey over more to see people. But that's been enhanced by the amount of people who are willing to help others participate. So like Bert, I'll give you props here. Like, for example, for City of Kings, Bert swung out of his way on the Friday to pick myself and Ivan up to go to it, to give us a cheeky lift there. Just out of the kindness of his heart. It was lovely. I've received lifts from Ben Pearson, Jamie Wiggins, Dave Farmer. I've been offered beds and floors to sleep on people's houses to sort of minimize event costs. Will Champion, for example, recently at the Masters, Ali at the City of Kings, and so on. And just people going, oh, here, you're going to that event, do you want to share a room? It reduces costs, but there's also a lovely way to get to know people. But it's just people.
Someone at my door. I'm just going to pop out for a second. Hi guys. Sorry. I'm an idiot based in Cartwork Technology. So there was a delivery at the door. When I went out to go and fetch that delivery, I came back and we lost everything after that. So I don't know if I paused the recording or something, or what, but yes, we lost everything after that. There was only about 10 more minutes of Michael and his sweet dulcet tones. But yes, so we just wanted to quickly wrap things up with me and Bert. So we were discussing how friendly everyone in the community tends to be, and how supportive people are of people coming from far-flung lands. Bert, you've been particularly good at this. Michael name-checked you yourself.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I've been very lucky. I made a lot of friends in the community, and Michael rattled off a list of hundreds of names long about people who helped me get to events. And it's one of those things. If So he's trying to suggest that if you're coming from abroad or some part of the UK where there isn't much of a scene, stick a message on an event page about lifts or accommodation. People really do want to help. And Michael said that he's had lifts, he's had floor to sleep on, random people to have lunch with. It's a really good friendly scene. So if you're ever vaguely worried about going to an event by yourself, do. It's one of the best things I ever did, and one of the best things Michael ever did to cross the Irish seas. I think Bangor was his first, but it turned into a big community very quickly.
Yeah, we having said that, though, I do also love going to events with a crew. We have to find the crew first. But there are people we know now in this community we only ever see at events. And I was actually, so I haven't been out to many events recently because I've got a dicky back. And then I went out to Worcester and I saw a lot of these people, but we used to see all the time at events. And actually, it was really nice. And I forgot that I liked some of them. And some of them I remembered that I didn't like.
Tom knows other people other than me. And it's really nice when he gets to hear other voices.
It's so nice to hear other voices other than Bert. Oh gosh, honestly, to be able to have a conversation, not be told the probability of you stepping with your right foot first than your left foot or something, is just But yeah, sorry if we got a bit distracted from the Irish community chat and ended up talking just about life in general. We like Michael; he's a good lad. So please do have a think about heading across to one of their events over there. They've got a really good scene that they've been growing at the moment. It's really impressive to see the last few years, how it's gone from kind of 10, 15 man events to what they got 50 odd at July.
Yeah, it's like 50 odd sold out in like half an hour. It was insane.
And as a community, they kind of need our support a little bit to head on over and kind of and make sure that their events can get large enough to get the points and things that they need. Because people like Michael and Ivan are definitely good enough players. They just sometimes struggle with the whole league structure the way it is. So yeah.
But also do if you're thinking about it, do drop Michael or Ivan or the TO a message. Because they would love to hear from you, and if they can find any way to help you get over to their event, they will do it.
There will be lifts from airports, there will be floors to sleep on, there will be all kinds of stuff. They've organised walking tours of Dublin and things in the past of people. They're such hospitable people. If you've got a missus and she moans about you taking time off to go to events, make a long weekend of it. Take her over to.
I literally have this plan next year. I plan to take 10 days holiday with the dog, go over to Ireland, play Toy Soldiers for a couple of days, and then take some suggestions from the Irish guys, and work out where to go. I cannot wait.
It should be just delightful. And also, if you live in Ireland or Northern Ireland, they have the IHL. I think they've got a Facebook group for the IHL. If not, hit up Michael Bradford or Ivan Sheehan on Facebook, or just slide into our DMs and we'll hook you up. Because they're always looking to find more people, and I'm sure there are many people. We had it when we first started doing stuff where people were like, "Hey, I live in Swindon. I didn't know other people in." You played in Swindon, played Middle Earth. We're like, yes, come hang out. Because if you don't know where to look, it's really hard. So yeah,
I had that for Michael. Yeah, I had that for Newbury as well. Just had 6 people go, "Oh my god, people play in Newbury."
Yeah,
I'm delighted you exist. Please come. please come to an event.
So yes, hit them up on Facebook. Let them know they have a cracking scene over there. Let us know if you are from somewhere in Australia that's not Queensland, or anywhere else in the world, France, Belgium, Germany, Italy, Poland, Brazil, anywhere, and want to talk about your local Middle Earth scene with us. We'd love to have a chat, because I just love hearing about all of these people who have the exact same experience as we do, but different. So yeah, thanks for that, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Love you, bye.
Bye bye.